welcome to the show, Josh.
Thank you for having me, as usual. I know this
Yep,
is a different episode, but it's always good to talk to you.
yep, I agree. I agree. So, tell me about yourself. Where were you? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in New Braunfels, Texas, New Braunfels and San Antonio area.
Okay,
Uh, yeah, it was a pretty good life. Can't complain.
brothers, sisters.
I have one sister who's a brat, but I love her.
Is she older or younger?
She's 6 years younger than me, but got
Oh,
a better mindset than I did.
yeah, that's how my sister is. She's 9 years younger than me, and she's doing much better than I was at her age.
Right? Isn't that kind of weird?
She's 28 and she owns two houses, and I'm sitting here renting still at 38.
Oh shoot,
Yeah,
man, my sister's got damn near bought my grandma's house, remodeled it. I helped do the electrical on it, and here I am. I'm finally just now getting my own apartment. Still don't own a house yet, but in the next year or so, I plan to be buying one.
yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, it's good to have that kind of mindset. We just renewed our lease for a 2-year lease, so we're not going anywhere anytime soon. Um,
Nah,
but yeah, my sister bought a house when she was like 24, and then instead of selling it, they rent it out now, and they live in a new house they bought in the town over. So yeah, my sister's killing it in comparison to me. That's for damn sure. Um, so you grew up, like parents divorced, they still together?
my parents divorced when I was about 6 years old. My mom kind of, I wouldn't say she ran out of my life, but she had some problems for a little while. My dad ended up raising us most of our life.
Oh, okay. The single
Yeah,
dad. Did he
yes,
remarry?
sir. He remarried when I was 18, and they've been together. So they've actually been together so 26, 27, 20, 28 years now.
Oh, okay. So you
So
had,
she's a beautiful woman. I love her, my stepmom, more than anything in the world.
I was gonna say you had a stable life then growing up with the dad, having a successful marriage.
Yeah, it wasn't until I was 18 that they got married. So in between there, it just the bouncing around from babysitters, and then my mom bouncing in and out of my life, and my behavioral problems and ADHD and all that stuff growing up. It was a rough life, but my dad did the best he could with what he had.
Yeah, and I know this isn't the addiction show, but when did you start drinking or using? How old were you?
My first experience with drugs and alcohol was about 14 years old. Yeah, started in around middle school, and it progressed once I got to high school. It was bad.
Yeah, that's how mine was. I started when I was 11, and by the time I got to high school, it was up off and running to the races when it came to drinking alcohol. I was just talking about it with a friend from work earlier. Her husband is in recovery too, and she was asking me about my story. And reliving that is sometimes how it goes when you relive that kind of shit. And it was off to the races for you too. It sounds like once you hit high school, you hit the ground running.
Yes, sir. I was uncomfortable in my own skin, and the only way I could be able to the only way I could feel that I could fit in was whatever group I was hanging with is the kind of drugs that I was doing.
What kind
So
of
I
drugs?
was basically just a chameleon.
What kind of drugs were you doing at that age?
That's very exhausting. You froze up.
What kind of drugs were you doing at that age?
Huh?
What kind of drugs were you doing at that age?
By the time I hit 16, 17 years old, I was already doing heroin, meth, LSD, drinking. I hung out with the potheads, and I also hung out with the pill poppers. So I was a variety drug addict,
Yeah, whatever was close by.
pretty much. Just I did whatever I had to just to fit in.
Did you feel like you had to try to fit in since like you didn't have like a stable home?
Most of it was because when I had cancer when I was 4, I was pushed off to the side by all the kids because I had cancer. I was bald and basically white going to school, and that created a trauma response to where to fit in. Once I got older, I would do whatever I had to do to get people to like me, and that included doing drugs.
How long did you have cancer for as a kid?
I was free and clear of it by the time I was about 5.5, 6 years old. They gave me a shitload of radiation back then. It was 1984, 85. They didn't have the chemotherapy like they got now.
Okay, do you think your parent, because like you got cancer free right around the time your parents divorced then?
Yeah,
Do you think they stayed together when you were 4 because of, not wanting to divorce while that was going on with you?
that could have been a problem. Could have been an issue. My mom, from my understanding, my dad was out truck driving on the road so he could pay the medical bills. And my mom was there every day at the hospital with me when I was there. I remember a lot of it, not vaguely, some vivid, some not so vivid, but I try not to think about it because I mean, 4 years old, got tubes and stuff coming out of your body. It is traumatic thinking about it now. But I was always told that I never shed a tear and I always smiled all the time, acted like I was never sick.
Yeah, that is some trauma growing up and feeling the need to try to fit in that carried with you for a while.
Yeah. Once after sorry, I got served some wonderful breakfast. Um, I like the grade school years. I was basically by myself all the time. I didn't really have any friends at all. So yeah, that was kind of a lonely. You're supposed to have your best years in grade school, just having fun and playing with other kids, and it was just me sitting by myself all the time.
Yeah, I can see how that could be, a rough way to go about things. I was I had met with some of my best friends when I was in first grade. So I know exactly what you mean about those are supposed to be your best years. And I'm still good friends with 3 of the 6 ones that I was best friends with growing up. 2 of them have passed away, and one to a car accident and the other one to OD. So,
Mm.
you know what I mean? I have trauma responses and grief and loss. And you know what I mean? Like when my dad passed away, I relapsed. So, I mean, you know how it is. So you get out of high school, you've already been doing like an array of drugs. Did you find one to hone in on, or did you continue to take, different amounts depending on who you were with?
Um, so when I quit high school at like 16. So at that time, I ended up just sticking around. Back then, it was crank, the old biker meth. Dude, I don't condone it, but that was the best shit.
Yeah.
And I did that for until about 21, and then after that, I switched from that back to heroin for a couple of years, and then I quit the drugs, but I drank heavily for another 10, 12 years, and then went back to meth and heroin from all the shit that I was dealing with.
What kind of shit were you dealing with?
So at 20, I've never shared this with my sponsor yet, and very few people in my family know about this either. When I was 20 years old, I had a friend come from Houston. Him and his girlfriend had broke up, and at that time, I was repoing cars. I had him staying with me in my apartment. Um, I had some chick over, and I had some drugs and alcohol. We were in my room partying, and he was in the living room moaning and groaning and crying, and I kept yelling at him to shut the fuck up because I was busy. Finally, at about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, it got quiet. Didn't think anything of it, and I go in the kitchen and I see he's still laying there on the floor, and I didn't say anything to him. Left him there. Another 12 hours later, I mean, I finally wake back up after about 12 hours later, and I come back in the living room and I go to kick him, and he was just fucking stiff as a board, blue in the face. Uh, I didn't do anything right away, so to numb how what I had just witnessed, I went ahead and went back in their bedroom and did a shot of heroin and passed out for another 8 hours. So he laid in that fucking living room for probably almost 24 hours before I even fucking finally called the cops. Uh, it was difficult because the cops were accusing me of killing him and all that stuff, and come to find out, he was a diabetic, and he ate a whole shitload of candy and did, I guess, what they call a diabetic suicide. And for years, it took me a long time to forgive myself for not doing anything to and not being so selfish at that time. And I told him that I've got your back. I'll always be here for you. But then this 2 hours later, yelling at him to shut the fuck up because I was busy. It's a little painful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough thing to witness. Somebody dying in front of you and not knowing what to do. I mean,
Yeah, not I. If I could, I can't say I wish I could go back and change it because I can't. But that's something I've dealt with for many, many, many years, and that's probably one of the reasons why I stayed fucked up so long, so long. And he's not the only one. I've lost two other good friends that I blew off because I was too busy partying and running around, and then come to find out, they ended up passing away. Another one committed suicide, and another one, he ended up getting killed. He was working on a piece of metal with a grinder, and it ricocheted off the wall, and it come back and hit him in the chest. He ended up dying alone in his shed, and I was supposed to be there that night with him working on the car, and I chose to go run around with a chick and get high. It's pretty sad what priorities come when you're using.
no, I totally get that, man. I'm sorry for your losses. I when so I can relate to what you're talking about. Um, when I was 20, how old was I? 2015, not 86. So I was 29, and I had gotten a job opportunity down in North Carolina, and I lived in South Jersey. And I got this job opportunity, and I was bad on pills at the time. And I was engaged to a childhood best friend, and she was bipolar schizophrenic. And I had decided that I was going to take this job opportunity, and I was going to have her move down in a month once I got settled. And when I moved, it was a Thursday night. Friday afternoon is when I moved, and we had gotten into a fight before I left. While I was on the highway driving down there, we had gotten into a fight, and that was on a Friday, and then on Sunday, I was settled in by Sunday, and at night I was watching like two different shows, and the song "Losing My Religion" by whatchamacallit, uh,
REM.
REM. Thank you. Um, and it was playing, and I heard it on the radio, and then I heard it somewhere else, like on Pandora randomly, and that song was one of her favorite songs. So I had texted her like 5 in the morning saying, "Hey, I want to talk and work things out. Like, I'm sorry that we got into a fight. Just give me a call when you wake up." And I got a phone call from our mom at 4 in the afternoon saying we lost her to suicide. So she was already dead by the time I texted her that. She had taken all of her pills and put a bag over her head and then duct taped it this way she couldn't get out of it. And she took over her pills, suffocated herself while she was sleeping, and nobody found her until 4 in the afternoon when they got home from work. And it killed me, man. I didn't know how to react. The only thing I knew what to do was go get alcohol and buy, a big bottle of Jack Daniels and get drunk with shit. And then I ended up at the bar 6 nights a week. And when I wasn't at the bar, I was at home drinking. And I couldn't find pills down there, but I found cocaine. So I started using cocaine daily too, while I was drinking daily. And when you're at the bar, it's easy to find coke. So I found myself, with the bartenders in the back part of the bar, getting high, coming out to the bars, stoned on cocaine, smoking weed. I was doing everything to numb the pain, man. And it wasn't working. I wasn't processing her death, and I blamed myself for a long time. So I totally know that feeling of I could have done more, or if I would have done this, maybe this wouldn't have happened, or if I would have said that, maybe this wouldn't have happened. And I carried that with me for 4 years. It wasn't until I did the steps and talked about it that I felt a lot better. And I did therapy a lot too. And when I first got sober, I was in therapy, and that helped a lot too. So I totally understand what you're talking about like feeling like you didn't do enough and you could have just done more, but you were being selfish. And I was being selfish by going down there. And, I was doing it for me and not for anybody else. I wasn't even considering her feeling when I decided to move down there. So, I can relate heavily to what you're talking about. And you're definitely not alone when it comes to that. Is there any other trauma that like popped up that would like keep your addiction going?
After him, then like I said, the other two, the second one did the same thing except for no bag. He texted me, he says, "Hey man, I need to talk," and I said, "I'll talk to you tomorrow." And come to find out, he downed all of his pills, and I was the last person that he sent a message to. Uh, that sucks. And then a couple, let's see, 2017, I think, 2018. I was staying behind a restaurant that I was working at in a little one room little apartment. They call it the little party room. And me and this chick, we weren't fighting, but I was constantly hitting on her, and it had pissed her off one night. And because she was staying there too, and I didn't know how to take no for an answer. I was being selfish. Well, I had called her like over and over an hour later, and come to find out, she ended up going in the hospital because somebody gave her a hot shot. It had diesel, chlorine, battery acid, and I think that was it. There was something, but anyway, she ended up dying in the hospital. The fucked up thing is she drove herself to the hospital, and the person that gave her the hot shot ended up stealing her fucking purse and her vehicle, and ended up wrecking it, killing herself in the process. So that's another one of them. One
Were
of them
you
was I got, huh?
you got what?
I got stabbed. That was a fun experience.
What happened with that?
um, this was 2016. I mean, I never went to the hospital on it. I got stabbed in the leg. So it didn't really it didn't hit any arteries or anything. I didn't really do anything about it, but that was kind of a fucked up experience. I was fucked up, and I looked at the motherfucker. I said, "You seriously just fucking stabbed my ass?" I'm like, "Oh, well, I don't feel it." I was pretty pretty lit, but
Why
it
did he
healed up
stab you?
nicely. It just got it looked, huh?
Why did he stab you?
Go ahead.
Why did he stab you?
Fuck, I don't remember. I don't remember. We were probably arguing over something. Me and him always argued all the time, but it just, I mean, I'd hit him with a 2x4 sometimes just to fuck. We were violent towards each other, but we were like, if anybody ever fucked with either one of us, we were there in a heartbeat for each other. It's kind of like just big brothers beating the shit out of each other. But I really don't remember why he stabbed me. I've come to find out 4 years ago, 3 years ago, he passed away. So, but I was already clean. He was still stuck in addiction, and I had to cut ties. And then I wish that he would have been able to find recovery, but there's, as you know just as well as I do, that most of our friends that we have are never going to find recovery.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and you know what I mean. There's people that I don't even talk to anymore because they don't want to talk to somebody who's clean. And I've reached out to them, you know, and I barely get responses back. And it's something that like they'll text me when they're ready to text me.
Hmm.
Were you getting arrested during these times?
No, believe it or not, I never got arrested on any of that. Thank God. The first one, they, like I said, the cops were trying to, they were battering me, saying, "Well, what'd you give him? Because there's no reason why this guy should be dead," and all that stuff. And I'm like, I didn't give him anything. But when the paramedics came there and they rolled him over, well, stretched him out to put him on the thing, there was a bunch of candy wrappers up underneath his body. So that's when the paramedic said, "Well, most likely it was diabetic suicide." After that, the cops go, "Okay, well, I guess you're free to go." I go, "What if they wouldn't have found the candy wrappers?" And they go, "Well, you'd be going to jail for murder." I'm like, "What?" So I'm glad it never happened. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm grateful. I'm sad that he passed away, but I'm grateful that I didn't get charged with murder. So,
yeah, definitely. Um, but you've been arrested though through addiction, right?
oh geez, probably over 30 times in the last 20 years.
And
Yeah, at least 30 times in the last 20 years.
that was it like drinking and driving? Was it for like public intoxication or
Most of them were because I didn't want to pay my damn either no seatbelt ticket, speeding ticket, no insurance ticket. I also got a bunch of no driver's license, but I've got three public intoxication charges, a DUI. I had seven assault charges against me, all in 1 year. But I pled guilty to the DUI, so those would get dropped because I was facing 15 years in prison.
who are you
Uh,
assaulting?
bar fights. I was the guy that was 10 foot tall and bulletproof, and if I saw somebody getting disrespected the way I, especially like a woman, I'm flying across the room with a beer bottle and pretty much go to jail. I was kicked out of every bar in New Braunfels at least 3 times, and then there's a couple of paraphernalia charges, and then two felony drug possession charges.
You had a lot on you?
I believe it or not, I am, thank you, dear Lord, for this, but I used to deal a lot of it, and I was having ounces at a time. I got busted with both times less than a pinky nail's worth of dope. God was watching me.
Yeah, you definitely got lucky because I had a large amount of pills on me before, and I had just because I was addicted to pills, and I had to drive 2 hours each way to get my pills. Because I lived in Amish country in Pennsylvania. So nobody lived in my area that I knew that had pills. So I would drive 2 hours to South Jersey, where I'm from, to pick up my pills. And so I would always buy like 20 at a time just so I had enough to last me a few days, because I wanted to not have to do that drive more than twice, 3 times a week. But I would end up doing that drive 4 or 5 days a week because I can never make them last. I was doing like 10 a day, 8 to 10 a day. And the one time I went, I saw it wasn't my regular dealer, it was a different dealer. My regular dealer was like out busy, so I couldn't see him. And I picked up 20 pills, and I was driving to my buddy's house after I picked them up, and a cop was following me and pulled me over in the school zone. And he hit me with intent to distribute in the school zone. And when I went to court, I argued that because I represented myself in court, I couldn't afford a lawyer and I didn't want a public defender. So I represented myself in court. And I said to the prosecutor when he was like interviewing me before I went in front of the judge, you probably know how that goes, how the prosecutor wants to talk to you before you go in front of the judge. And he was like, so you have intent to distribute in a school zone against you. And I was like, listen, I was a drug addict, right? And because I was clean 9 months when I went to court for this. And I was like, I was a drug addict and I was a heavy user. And all those pills I bought were for myself because I lived 2 hours away. And the school zone part of it, the cop was following me for a mile before he pulled me over. He pulled me over in a school zone. I wasn't standing in a school zone with pills. He pulled me over in the school zone after following me for a mile. He could have pulled me over right away, but he chose to continue to follow me and then pull me over in that school zone. And, I wasn't there standing there with pills in my hand in a school zone. And he was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. We're going to drop that charge. He was like, but you still had large quantity on you. And I said, yeah, I was a drug addict. Even right now, I live 2 hours away. I live in Hershey, Pennsylvania. It's an hour and 40 minutes from here. I was doing that drive 4 or 5 days a week, picking up 20 to 30 pills every time I would come to town because I had a problem. I was a drug addict. I was like, you can put me on drug court and I'll pass all your drug tests. And, I'll pay the fine and I'll show up to drug test every single week if that's what I have to do. But I'm clean and sober, so I'm willing to do anything to work with you guys. And he was like, did you get sober because you got arrested? And I was like, honestly, no. I got sober because I was tired of doing that runaround. And I was tired of chasing around the drugs to keep me high. And I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And he was like, well, I appreciate your honesty. Most people would have said, yes, I got sober because I got arrested. I got sober for me, not because I got arrested. And he was like, okay. And then the judge got all my answers and my responses. And I was standing there representing myself. And he was like, I can't believe how honest you were in your interview. Usually people would lie to me just to hear what they think I want to hear. And you told the truth about everything. So you know what? I'm going to drop the charges and because I had an eighth of weed on me. He was like, I'm going to charge you with having a green leafy substance and 20 unidentifiable pills. And you're going to pay a fine of $750 and you won't get any. And I didn't get probation. I didn't get any jail time. I got it all dropped down to just having, some substances on me that were unidentifiable. And I paid the $750 on the spot and I walked out of there and never returned to Jersey in that area ever again.
Damn. That's pretty good.
I didn't have a lot of priors. My only prior arrest was for theft in 2013, 5 years before that. And that got expunged from my record because I did probation and I got through all that and I paid my fines And since that was my first offense, they expunged it off my record. So I didn't have a record by the time 2018, 5 years later, when I went in front of the judge.
No, gotcha. Yeah, I had a long arrest record when I was finally going to court for my two felony charges, but because the first one was a first offense, they went ahead and put them both as one. And if I completed rehab, I was supposed to go to 5 years prison, but the judge showed grace and sent me to rehab instead, and said if you complete rehab and probation like you're supposed to, it'll be dropped down to one felony charge. Well, come to find out, it's still two felonies. They never dropped it down to two. They never dropped it down to one. It was supposed to be dropped off my record once I got done. It's still on my fucking record. But all I know is that's what was my saving grace, because that's what got me clean and sober, was being told that I was going to go to rehab, and I've been blowing and going recovery since then. I just needed a little nudge.
How long ago was that?
I'll be 5 years and 8 months this month.
So what is your sober date?
My sober date's 3/11/2019, the day that I left court and went straight to jail.
And then you went straight to rehab?
I had to detox for 45 days before I could go to rehab. And my last day using, I had meth, heroin, PCP, coke, Xanax, weed, and alcohol in my system. So I was trying to off myself, but it just didn't work.
Yep. So wait, you're the first person besides myself, and I'm talking 200 interviews on my other show. You know what I mean? Like, I'm on episode 202 of my other show, and nobody else besides you has told me they've done PCP besides me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been tricked into smoking angel dust twice.
Did you get the visual?
Yes, man, 100%. The first time I got tricked into it, it was mixed in a blunt, and I smoked it with my buddy. And when we were done, he was like, "By the way, that's wet." I'm like, "It's wet." He was like, "Yeah, angel dust PCP." I'm like, "What the fuck?" And I didn't know what to expect, and I had a horrible trip. I was throwing up everywhere. Everything was all blurry. I hadn't tried acid at this point, so I didn't understand what a trip was, and I had a horrible experience. That was in 2008. In 2011, I was at a concert, and we were tailgating, and in Massachusetts is where I was living at the time, and weed was decriminalized. And I had a cigarette pack with like 6 joints in it already rolled that I was going to pregame with. And the cops took them all from me. They took my cigarette pack from me. And the dude I was drinking with that I had never met before, he said to me, "Hey, I have some weed in my car that we can smoke." And I was like, "Okay, let's do that." And so I smoked with him. And 2 hits in, he was like, "By the way, that's angel dust." I'm like, "What the fuck?" And it started raining. I was pre-gaming a concert, and it started raining. Our seats were in the grass. So my roommate, he was just drinking. He wasn't a smoker. And I left my phone and my wallet in his car so it didn't get wet. And the only things I brought with me were my cigarettes, my lighter, and my concert ticket. And I went into the concert right as the visuals were starting to happen. And I had the best night of my life because I knew I had done acid by this point. So I understood tripping and what you should do. And you kind of embrace it, and you sit and chill with it, and you don't overreact to the visuals. So like, but I never smoked it again. I didn't like it enough to where I was seeking that out again because it's scary. PCP is a scary drug, and synthetic, and you don't know if they're mixing it right and shit. So, what was your experience with PCP?
So I've had 5 different experiences. 3 of them were horrible. 2 of them were awesome. So my last experience, I did PCP 3 days before I went to court to go turn myself in, but I was still somewhat tripping the night before. But I said then the last time of using it, but with all the other drugs, I don't really remember the trip. All I know is people said I was pretty fucked up. No, but the first 3 times were horrible. The very first time I was shit faced, liquored up, and I was mean and angry. So my visuals were the like the devil and freaking demons and all that shit, and I was running around the parking lot screaming like I was being chased by demons. Second time I had it was PCP and ecstasy that I took. It wasn't a horrible, horrible trip, but it wasn't great either. Every time somebody touched me, it just felt like I was being. Uh, it's like 1,000 hands were grabbing me all at once, just by someone touching me. It just, I kind of hid in the corner of the room, and I'm like, just screamed at everybody, leave me alone, don't touch me. The third time, I really don't remember, but from what I was told, I was screaming and crying for about 6 hours. But that's pretty much about it. And I did all that voluntarily. And I figured somebody offered it to me. I'm like, all right, fuck it, let's go. I didn't have a care in the world. And I just told everybody, I said, if I die, I die. If I don't, I don't. I just didn't give a fuck. I had that mentality. Well, I don't want to die, but I'm okay with dying, and I would be just embracing it. But here I am still.
I heard in a meeting once that stuck with me is I didn't want to die, but I didn't want to be conscious anymore.
I've never heard that before, but that sounds about right. I didn't want to be present in right then and there. I just wanted to be somewhere else.
Yep. Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking about, that story, because I know it's never easy to relive that kind of thing. Definitely talk to your sponsor about it. I hope you feel more relaxed and able to be open up with your sponsor about it, because I think he'll tell you the same thing that I told you, that you're not alone in that. You're not the first person that's happened to, where your addiction made you selfish and caused you to lose somebody. And my addiction did that to me too, and it's unfortunate, but the only thing we can do is try to do better in the future and not let it happen again.
Yes, sir.
That's all we can do.
Yeah, I'm gonna check the sponsor when we get done, and let him know next week. And when we meet up to do a fourth step, I got something I got to tell him.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you opened up about that. I appreciate you coming on and talking about everything, and it's always nice to chat with you, bud.
Yes, sir. It's good to chat with you too.
Have a nice day.
You too, brother.
See
Goodbye,
ya.
everybody.